It was whatever if my mom was going to get on me, if I was going to get a whooping from her versus him.
Yeah.
Like, he terrified me, and he had like the psychological thing where you would have to sit down and like look him in the eye, and he goes, this is why. And I mean, I commend him for that. That was, I know as a father, I know that's not easy to do. No discipline seems pleasant at the time.
Right.
So like, it's not meant to be fun.
And I think that all goes back to God's design for the family and the family unit, and the father being the head of that unit and the leader of the home, not just the provider, but the leader.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're going to continue our conversation on fatherlessness, how that impacts our society, and why God's design for family matters more than ever now. So would you please read that scripture that you just so happened to find before we started to record?
Yes, and it's funny because I've been looking for stuff in the Bible speaking about fathers and completely missed this. This is in Hebrews 12, starting at verse 7.
In the NIV.
In the NIV, your favorite.
Not my favorite.
Endure hardships as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons or daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, although it's what we're talking about, not all of us have.
And we respected them for it.
And we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. That's pretty big. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and a peace for those who have been trained by it.
Yes.
So discipline is very important.
Yeah.
And speaking of, I just locked it, which isn't supposed to do that. Speaking of discipline and fatherlessness, I think that's something that is, I think we have mentioned before about the passive fathers and how it just seems like, because you mothers have it, you have a way of making everything seem under control.
Yeah.
But you're very good at making everything look like it's under control. And it's easy to kind of take a sidebar and just step back and let you do that. Whereas that's not how the order is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
not like passive fathering, but let's talk more specifically about like homes that have no dad in the picture at all.
Right. Okay.
And like what that means, not only for the children that are being affected by that, but also like how does that affect society?
Well,
and then I wanted to look at these statistics that I had. So, we're going to touch on 3 of the 7 key factors that we had talked about in the last episode. So today we're going to touch on social development, risky and criminal behavior, and sexual behavior. Not necessarily in that order, but those are going to be the 3 things that we sort of focus this conversation around. So we're going to start it off with risky and criminal behavior. And I think that verse is perfect because like you were saying, like not all kids have had a father to discipline them. And because they haven't had that, we see right here, this statistic from America First Policy Institute says that 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutes come from a fatherless home. And 85% of youth in prison and 85% of children with behavioral disorders are raised in fatherless homes. So it's like that is a big number. It's more than half.
It shows like an out of balance.
Yeah.
Right. So even if it shows more or less the as far as not even imprisonment, but just the behavioral disorders.
Right.
Like it's almost like an overing or an overdose of nurturing, rather, to where there's not a strict.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know how to word that. As far as a laying down the law kind of thing.
Well, I think when you don't have a dad in the picture.
Well, and you only get one side of things too.
That's what I'm saying.
And especially, let's say, for sons, to be kind of impossible to learn how to be.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to learn how to be a man from a mom, but definitely plenty of hurdles that are thrown in the way.
Right.
Because of that difference.
For sure. And then I was just thinking about how it is a disproportionate number. So why is that? Because like if sometimes people just commit crime, then why are so many of these crimes being committed by children that don't have a dad? And it goes back to that discipline because they didn't have that man. Not saying that moms can't discipline their children, because my mom definitely disciplined me. And I know your mom disciplined you, and I discipline our children.
It was a vast difference between my mother disciplining me versus my dad. Like, it was whatever if my mom was going to get on me, if I was going to get a whooping from her versus him.
Yeah.
Like, he terrified me, and he had like the psychological thing where you would have to sit down and like look him in the eye, and he goes, this is why. And I mean, I commend him for that. That was, I know as a father, I know that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And from once our kids were really little, Casey, like the hardest thing, and it's sometimes it's easy because sometimes they legitimately make you mad, and it's hard not to just knock them across the room
them out of anger.
Exactly, and it hasn't always. I haven't always had that mindset, but there was one time I don't know how old he was. He was still a little guy, and I don't know if he was in trouble. I think he was saying like what he was saying was bad, like he was using bad words or something like that. And I was gonna pop him for that. And I told him, like I sat him down and he looked me eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I told him what it was, and I was only gonna pop him twice. But when I did, he turned around and he was like, and I'm like, what? And he was like, he said he wants to say bad words right now. And I mean, I had to turn away so he didn't see me laugh at him. But that was.
But it's funny, like how easily they pick up those worldly things like that. Like, okay, like I'm upset right now, so I want to say a bad word.
Well, and even
and like that's why you need a dad to be like, no, like
to correct that. And it's like as far as lying, and it's you don't have to teach anyone how to lie.
No,
that is easily picked up when you do something, even if it's by mistake, and you're reprimanded for that. And you're asked point blank, did you do that? And once you figure out by saying no, and you get away scot-free, then that just sets the tone there. So now you have to have a moral character that's built. And that, I mean, obviously, I think that's done by both sides, mom and dad.
Yeah.
But obviously, having both sides of that enforced, I think, is very important.
Yeah, and I think that all goes back to God's design for the family and the family unit, and the father being the head of that unit and the leader of the home, not just the provider, but the leader.
Yeah.
Because that's what the leader does. The leader provides, but he also, I want to say, manages the family and like the children and
And it's not an easy position.
Right. That parenting class that we went to, they talked about like the woman is the thermometer, like she measures the temperature in the room,
sets the temperature.
And the dad is the thermostat.
The thermostat,
and
that it's something hard that because you are, you're called to be the provider, so you have that weight, and it can be overbearing at sometimes, and then other times it's something you're proud to carry. But at the same time, when you have that frustration from one, like you said before, like when you come home, like you have to leave that at the door.
Yeah, and I've told you, I'm like, try to like imagine yourself like taking all this stuff off and leaving it at the door,
And that's not easy for me to do.
so that you can come in,
right,
and
you know what,
be fully present for your kids and for me.
And instead of, because I have trouble with this, like imagining
taking it off,
imagining these things.
Let me hang it up here at the door.
Realizing the perspective of them.
Yeah,
like the first thing my dad does when he comes home is genuinely happy to see me, and not mad about whatever didn't get done for the day or whatever, which is some of the stuff that my dad was prone to do. It was the first thing you would notice.
You, like, what was the tone whenever your dad would come home?
It was usually like it was if the checklist was done.
Yeah.
Right. So if you did
not
anything
like, what
all
did you
day,
do today?
Yeah, it wasn't. Which, I mean, it wasn't a lot that I was there without that. But yeah, I always had a chore list to do. But his was more of an unspoken chore list. You should just know what to do. And so so in my defense,
do you feel like you always came second to like that list of like things?
Like the list of expectations.
Yes. And then it was like, once those things are accounted for, then I'm going to ask you how you are.
Yeah, more. I think definitely the I'm proud of yous and stuff definitely came like after certain achievements, and not. I mean, obviously, I'm proud of you for existing, or surviving today. That's not the case, but I think overall, like, it's after an accomplishment.
Yeah. And like, one thing I try to do is like encourage our kids and tell them they're doing a good job, even with like school. Yeah. We started homeschooling.
And that's where there's like a fine line between the participation trophy that
but it's like,
I don't like that either.
We're trying to figure this thing out, and I don't want them to hate it.
Well, no, I think there's a very fine line, and we've talked about it.
So I'll just be like, you did a really good job at school today, even though they might not have done a really good job at school today. We made it through.
It's like, what do you think you could have done better? But anyway, I think is in having our two different perspectives.
Yeah.
That I think it's funny because sometimes we look at our kids and like they're just weird. And it's because we didn't grow up in the same home they have at all.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think that like maybe they're actually like normal. And like that's what comfortable looks like.
They're not being raised with a high level of trauma.
Because it's like, talking about, Casey and like the things he does, he's still a little boy.
Yeah.
He's not.
And he's almost a teenager.
He's a big boy, but he acts like a little boy sometimes. And then, even with Cabry.
Yeah.
And kind of venturing into that, but it's like it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And again, like to say, it can look weird from another perspective. But anyway, next topic.
No, I wanted to just reiterate that,
as far as
like how sin distorts God's design. So I have here, the absence of fathers often leads to brokenness, which manifests as anger, rebellion, and crime. And so I think it goes back to that identity. And I feel like I find that a lot in social issues. It's that lack of identity. And I think we touched on the first episode about fatherlessness, how the identity comes from the father.
Right.
And so, I mean...
Well, like
that brokenness is just not knowing who you are.
Well, and I've heard you say it as far as, growing up without a dad around, and it was like a feeling of being unwanted, because it's like, even from, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that there is a more, like a mother is just like, you carry the baby, it grows in your body.
Right.
So like, from a worldly perspective, like, you're the one building this thing, right? Because the father's role in it's not that major. it's definitely a supporting role.
Yeah.
But so I think that it's easy to have that perspective of like, well, of course, the mother is going to mother it, and like the father seems almost disconnected based off of nature.
Yeah.
And speaking of nature, it is like fathers in nature aren't with the animal kingdom and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they're not nowhere near as connected as what human beings are. But I think that that's a if that was true, right, to where if it was just required for the mom, then you wouldn't have that loss in identity, and you wouldn't have that, because like you were obviously wanted. Somebody obviously cared about you, loved you. And hearing you tell plenty of stories about your growing up, you didn't have a terrible childhood.
No.
It was obviously lacking in plenty of places, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't without. And
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I do feel like I had a really good childhood.
And although I do think there are fortunate situations, or more fortunate than others,
even somebody like me,
yeah,
that has a good village of people,
yeah,
like helping my mom,
yeah, and that was
in certain areas, I still struggled with my identity.
And I think that's where this...
And maybe not like the criminal behavior. I mean, I definitely was involved in some stuff that I shouldn't have been involved with. But I think we see it more so in our boys that are being raised. Well, and I probably should have gotten the statistic on like how many of those are female versus male, because I feel like growing up seeing boys being raised without dads, they were more likely to commit crimes than girls. I feel like for girls, they more so struggle with the sexual behavior versus the criminal behavior.
And we probably tend to lean more towards the boys that were into that rebellion and anger.
I certainly was.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm... And I mean, I think that it coincides. I think that there's just two completely different identity crises going on.
Yeah.
To where you're not really knowing your worth, and their worth is distorted.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like I had that rebellion, and I definitely had anger. I remember I would be so angry.
But, and I mean, the rebellion and the crime, or just rebellion. I keep looking back over here at where we had started off with Hebrews 12, and at verse 10, it says, they disciplined us, talking about earthly fathers, they disciplined us for a little while as they thought best.
Yeah.
So like, we're like, as an earthly father, I'm disciplining based off of, my experiences and things, and saying, don't do this because, I did that one time and got hurt.
Right.
Or something. It's like, maybe you just have a little more common sense than me, but I don't see it. I'm only seeing it from my experiences. Whereas, and then it says, but God, and that's a whole thing in itself, but God disciplines us for our good. So it's like, you can take, all the creation that I've done and compare it to what He's literally just spoken to existence, and that He's already ordained your beginning to the end. Right. So obviously, when He's correcting you, it's coming from fact. It's not coming from His past experiences or His loss or whatever, or shortcomings. He knows. Right. And like, that's where the father's role, and I've heard this, I don't know if there's a statistic here anywhere or not, and I'm sure there is, how you associate your earthly father. Yeah. How, with your heavenly if father. They were present, then your heavenly father is going to be present. If they were not present, then He's going to be more distant. And
that's definitely how I saw my relationship with God. Like, I just felt
very conditional.
Yeah, and like, okay, He's there, but does He really care about me? And
that was something that
am I wanted by Him?
Yeah. And I think it doesn't matter your age, you still question that from time to time. Somebody had just mentioned that the other day about if He was...
I don't think I question it, but I think it's something I have to constantly like take inventory on. Like, how I'm feeling right now, is that out of a place of not knowing who I am in Christ? Because when I know who I am in Christ, then I don't struggle with X, Y, and Z.
It struck when you, like, who you are in Christ versus who you are.
Right.
And that obviously can be a Christ perspective versus a world's perspective, right? Who you are here can be professionally, who you are professionally, what your career is, right? Or your whatever attributes you have are there, versus in Christ would be how God created you, like what He made you to be.
And how He sees
and how He sees you, and regardless of where you are, how He sees you doesn't change. And like we were saying, like with the "I'm proud of you, son" kind of thing, it's accomplishment based, or achievements. Like you have to have something done. And again, like I'm against the participation trophy. Like I think sometimes even and it brings a balance. It brings a balance because I see things like even things like doing the dishes.
Right.
Like I'm a very efficient person. I'm not in plenty of ways, but in certain things, like there's a rule book on how to do it. But and so when I see things that aren't done that way, I've gotten a lot better as far as how it's done, as long as it's done proper, adequately.
Yes.
But then seeing things kind of halfway done,
right?
Like it takes a person, and it's because I'm thinking of when I'm not there, and like I've told you that, like sometimes I worry because I'm like, what are they going to be able to handle this? And I've heard from other people whose kids had done plenty of the same things that ours do, and they have assured me, like, once they don't have a choice, they figure it out.
And that's like me. Like whenever my mom died, there was so much I didn't know, and I figured it out. I mean, I was 24, but I figured it out.
24 with twins and a whole lot of stuff happening. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be okay. I think they'll figure it out.
They are. And they're very smart. And that's...
Yes, because I'm their teacher.
Well, and I'm trying to like just... And you put that trust in God that...
Yeah.
You know, that I'm much closer to where I'm supposed to be now as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a person in society itself than what I was even a year ago. And so it's trusting that if I seek out what I'm supposed to do, then they're fine. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just by my example alone. And I think
I agree.
I think I had a scripture about that where basically you are the model to what they should be. You're the model for what kind of man the son should grow to be and what kind of model the daughter would seek, the attributes to seek in a husband.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, in our social development, sometimes we go towards these worldly things. I know for me, like, the world was quick to be there, and to welcome you in, not because it cared about you, but because it wanted to bring more people into that downfall. And so I think that it's like a malformed social development to like enter into these criminal activities and gangs and just being around people that are no good for you because you want to have that role model and you want to have somebody to look up to. And that's like a lot of like young boys that get involved in gang activity. They get involved in it because it creates a sense of community and the sense of like, well, I have somebody that cares about me. When in reality, they don't really care about you. They just care about what you can do for them.
And it's because they only have a surface level experience in dealing with that.
Yeah. And it's basically out of a place of survival.
Right. And I was looking, I had some notes here about that as far as how their social would go.
Yeah, so moving down to social development.
And I see Ephesians 6:1-4 it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. And it always, like anything biblically, it's always father and mother.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't, like
because it's a unit.
The other thing that stands out is if you just search for fatherlessness in the Bible, the main thing you find is that God looks after and provides for the fatherless and the widows. So it's like the man's role is pivotal.
Yeah.
And despite what I think the world really tries to do is kind of snuff that down a lot to where it's equal both sides. And I'm not sure where.
And then we do a disservice to like what we were created and designed to be.
Right, and that's where I was gonna. It was another verse either, but the Proverbs 31.
Yeah,
I've seen it on T-shirts.
Well, because like I think about my mom, like how different could our relationship have been had she not had to play both roles?
Yeah, Yeah, she'd have been able to let one side down. Yeah, and it really did. I mean, it robbed you of that.
Yeah, and it robbed her.
Well,
of
yeah,
her identity and
right.
who she was called to be as a mother, because she had to step in to fill both of these roles in my life. And I mean, I think she did a great job.
Yeah, I think she did too. And it's fine. I mean, obviously, you mature as you
Right.
grow, and I think that's a choice to what you mature in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious from my perspective over the last 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
5 years, that you've definitely sought out a maturity in your identity in Christ. Like
Yeah.
you're very rooted, and you know who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to not forget, but I guess it is kind of
But
like
I remember,
lose touch of that person.
like, whenever it was after my mom had died, I feel like that was whenever I really actually began the process of like deliverance
Yeah.
of my
And
identity.
I think it's like you didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I was lacking in plenty of places, but you could have easily went a different direction, and we would
Mm-hmm.
not be sitting here
Well, I
talking to this right
mean,
now.
there were times that I did
Yeah,
seek out my identity in other
yeah,
sources throughout that time, one being alcohol.
right.
Um, but I remember specifically there was a time where this guest pastor came to our church, and I don't remember his name, but I bought his book, and I
Hmm.
can't tell you what he preached on. But I bought his book, and as I was going up there, I was still dealing with this like identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in my head, I was like, God, if you're real, show me through what you write in this book whenever I go up here to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want to see myself as a princess. And I remember that man. I bought the book, and he wrote in it, "You are a princess." And I don't remember what else. And I was like, okay, God, I see you. I see that you see me. And I have treasured those words because that is how he sees me.
Yeah,
He didn't see me as this broken mess of a person
right.
that was searching for the world to fill me with something only he could. And I knew this topic was going to be sensitive for me. One day I'll be able to talk about it without crying.
You'll still be able, you're doing. I mean,
But yeah,
cry.
I mean, I still have that book. And I remember back in February, whenever I went to this retreat with Cabry, and one of the things that was coming up was me feeling like still that unwanted. And then I remembered about how when I was born, it was spoken over me that it would have been better for me to have died
Mm,
than to live. And I didn't realize the power of that word curse that had been spoken over my life as a newborn baby. And the day I was born, the enemy has tried to corrupt my identity through various different ways. But the Lord is so good that He has used many different paths to redeem that and redeem how I see myself. And He's used people to speak that into me, like that man
right.
that probably had no clue why he was writing this in this book. And I remember him even looking at me like, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to write it. And then at that retreat, it came up about me feeling like I was always like second, like the second choice. And you just don't realize, you know, how these things really shape how you see yourself. And that's not how God sees you. because
the
there
end
was a
result.
moment within the last year. There's been a handful of times in my life that I've heard audibly the Lord speak to me. And one of the times the Lord spoke to me within this last year, He told me, I gave you an exceptional soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, He sees me as exceptional and a princess. And here I am thinking that I deserve to be with this guy that's like no good, like robbing from the church as they pass the offering plate. And that's what I'm settling for as a teenage girl. Like, I wish
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
No.
You pointed at me, but that wasn't me.
I was pointing back there because
Okay, well,
he's out there with the trash.
You're pointing at me. Well, no, I stole things, but I never stole from a church. I drew the line at that. I wouldn't steal from a
But
church.
like, how much different could my life have been had somebody spoke the truth into me as a even the day I was born, had somebody said no, like she was supposed to be here. And then as a little girl in first grade, when the girls didn't want to play with me because I didn't have a dad, like what if somebody had been like, you know, you do have a dad. You have a heavenly Father who loves you and who wanted you. But I think about me as a 12-year-old girl, a 13-year-old girl, a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And just searching for who I am in other people and seeking the validation from other people because you don't have it from a father.
Right.
Because that's where that's formed. It's formed through your father. And now I'm done with my TED Talk.
I don't want to laugh at it, but I mean, and it is I had something and I was.
I'm sorry.
No, I literally just had it and I forgot it. But I was reading some of the notes that I had, and it just has quotes around it that a father teaches both respect for authority and how to nurture relationships without harshness.
Yeah.
And the whole gist of everything that I have here is basically it's almost like you can measure the rise and fall of any subject based off of each other, right? So you have the fall of the nuclear family, right? Or godly families. And then you have the rise of single parent households, which is the rise of children growing up in poverty and having higher behavioral issues, crime rates, and just again the identity crisis to where again like it's so sad to see like the brotherhood of any kind of gang, right? Like on the surface it sounds like just unbelievable, but you know that it's not. But at the same time, like you look at it in sports, right? Like I remember playing high school sports.
If anything's unifying people except for Christ, then it's probably not healthy.
The source of, and when I played football in high school, and we were a tiny little nobody school, but we prayed before before practice. Afterwards, we prayed before we went out on the field, and we prayed before we left the field. And it was like it didn't mean anything to the majority of us.
Right.
It was just it's what you did. Everybody goes to church, it's whatever. But we never know. Like thinking about it right now is really it's kind of like a real time revelation of how different any of us could have been. Because like I remember whenever someone would get hurt, like everybody would take a knee. And there was a few schools we went to and we played, they did not. Really? Like they didn't. They were just they carried on about their business. And that's not to say we were better or not, but it's like there was almost a better sense of mortality, I guess, right? To where it's like it sinks in to where we're just in high school. We're all kids. And it's like this sucks that somebody's hurt. And 9 times out of 10 they get up. It's very rarely a serious injury. it's usually, most of the time, it just freaked them out. It scared, they didn't bend the right way or something. But, you know, and other times it's life-changing.
Yeah.
But just to think of how different things would have went, and like the encouragement from one another, and it encouraged the encouragement, you know, if one didn't finish, everybody's got to do it again. And to where you end up at the end of the suicides you're running, you got 10 people dragging somebody to where, and it's almost like that nobody left behind mindset. But that's where fathers are called to build that in their family.
Yeah.
To where, you know, it's funny.
And I have down a note that the presence of a father figure provides modeling of authority, discipline, and healthy relationships. And without this, children may struggle with trust, boundaries, respect for authority, which then spills over into peer relationships, school behavior, and eventually community engagement.
And it is like, I mean, obviously the statistics show that, and like I had started off before I started rambling, the rise and the fall of things, that, you know, we have so many modern advancements in technology, cell phones, everything, right? But at the same time, it's like it's just replaced it,
right?
To where now people have relationships with ChatGPT and AI and all these things. And it just shows that there's a superficial, because obviously there's multiple levels to a relationship, right? And I think even, like, I think one of the topics was the sexual behavior, right? And the sexual immorality and all that, that obviously that's the number one thing that is mentioned in the Bible, by the way, is basically idolatry. But sexual immorality is choosing yourself over that and worshiping what feels good in the moment.
And it's a sin done to your own body.
Exactly, which is a sin that would inevitably would lead to your death. But and again, it could be a spiritual death. Like, I think not everything is cut and dry, but with that lack of identity and that lack of a mother in a loving home with a mother and a father supporting one another. And again, like, you know, it's not like you need to just go around making out in the kitchen, but there needs to be a connection between the two, you know. And it's like, I remember growing up with my mom and my stepdad, I never saw that. Like, it was never an interact. It was, I mean, it was like a friendship, right? Or maybe if you want to call it a partnership, fine, but never saw much like romance, to where I always said, like, I'm going to be the romantic, whatever. And it's much easier said than done. But it was because it was like just a fantasy. Like, this can't be how it is. Like, this is what I want. But then at the same time, you turn to porn and you turn to that, and that builds this another fake identity, to where it's like, oh, well, that's what women want. That's what girls are looking for. And it's definitely not. And it's like, it creates this impossible position to fill, for one. And once you lose, I mean, obviously on the girl side of that, not having a man around supporting their mom, right, or even being the authoritative figure or the provider or protector or any of that, like, you would seek that in however you're seeing lacking, right? So you would obviously go from one to the other extreme. And to where now, I remember growing up, it never seemed like girls watching porn that just seemed like something crazy. I didn't think it was possible. But then it's like, no, they struggle with this just as much as boys do. I don't know if it's as much or whatever less, but I know that they do.
I think now it's like, I think research has said that it's like just as much.
Yeah, and it's because of that. So if you have that lack of the authoritative figure, or just not even that, like just the identity of it, you're going to seek that in any way possible. And we definitely live in a sex culture, to where, you know.
Before we get into the sexual behavior, because that's where you're headed, I want to just wrap up this topic of social development. So in Proverbs 13:24, it says, and this is the amplified version. Y'all didn't get to hear that whole conversation we had before we started recording about different translations. He who withholds the rod of discipline hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines and trains him diligently and appropriately with wisdom and love. Because I think that's a very critical point right there, is appropriately, because sometimes parents don't appropriately punish. They either overly punish, or they underpunish their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this teaches that discipline is an expression of love.
Mm-hmm.
And fathers who guide their children set the foundation for healthy social development. So if you're not discipline, having this disciplinary action within your child rearing, then that's not love. Because love is correction. Like you said at the very beginning of this, God corrects us because he loves us. And are you bringing it up? It said we would not be legitimate.
Well, right.
So, like, we wouldn't be his children if he didn't discipline and correct us. And that's just like our kids. Like, we don't just go discipline somebody's kid in Target. Like, I might want to, but, we're not going to because it's not our kid. But if our kid's doing that same thing in Target,
right,
we're gonna discipline them.
Well, it says back to the same in Hebrews 12 verse 11 says no discipline seems pleasant at the time.
Right.
So like it's not meant to be fun. And I've struggled with correction. Still don't like to be corrected in a lot of areas. Some areas I can admit when I'm wrong, but some areas I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it's no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. So it's painful, meaning it's hard. It's hard to go through. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness.
Yes.
And peace for those who have been trained by it. So like using that healthy guideline of
there was so much
correction.
Growing up that my mom would not let me do, and I just thought it was because she was mean.
Well, yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, no, it was because she was protecting me from myself. And so, like, now I'm thankful for all of those things. And I think as you have kids too, you start to see, like, okay, these things I didn't like that my parent did, like, they were for my good because they loved me.
And it's too to see from this side of things as a parent.
Well, let's move down into the sexual behavior. So, fatherless daughters are 7 to 10 times more likely to become pregnant as teenagers, and fatherless sons are significantly more likely to engage in risky or multiple sexual partners. 7 to 10 times more likely to become teenage parents. And
7 times is a lot.
Yeah. And I wish I would have looked up, like, the statistic on teen pregnancy. I know it varies based off of the regions, but I feel like it's probably even more than that. 7 to 10 times more. But basically what the research is showing us is that children are more likely to engage early in sexual activities, have teen pregnancies, and be in unstable relationships, like me. Like, I was in an unstable relationship. And then all of that really just goes back to seeking that validation and, and trying to fill that void that you have of wanting to be loved, and you don't understand what love actually is and how sex is a part of that covenant, that marriage covenant that God created when he designed us. And whenever we don't follow these things and we ignore, what his design was, and those consequences lead to broken relationships and wounds.
What's that hookup? Do you remember eHarmony? The commercial with the guy that it led to more marriages and all these things or whatever. It was obviously early on the online dating thing, and it was eHarmony, but it was like it had this whole compatibility thing, and I thought about this the other day, and I wanted to go back and look up like how true some of the stuff was, because apparently it was just the site was one of the dating sites that led to the most marriages, and was kind of curious to see, well, how long did these marriages last? People get married all the time. Like, the divorce rate is super high because people get married, but then they get divorced. So, versus then, and then you kind of have as the hookup culture, I guess you could call it, the one night stands and all these things get more and more okay to where I feel like I don't remember what it was. It was a movie, and it was a college dorm, and the girl had stayed over at this guy's house, and she did the walk of shame, right? To where it was like everybody knew what happened, but it was shameful to her. But now it's like the more empowerment, whatever, to where now it's like, oh, well, you go boy, you go girl. Like, it's the same thing.
And now they call it a body count.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm getting at, is that it's so desensitized.
Yeah.
To the point to where, I'm like, it blows me away to see some of the books that are out there that are being put, and to see the age limit on there, or suggested age is like 10 and up. And it's like, they can't even watch movies that are, rated R yet. They're literally looking at a pornographic book.
And that's why, like, I'm very careful of, like, what we don't tend to watch a lot of secular stuff. We have in the past, but within the last year, like, we haven't. And so, like, even, like, taking the kids to the movies the last couple of times I've taken them, like, I've had to be really careful and, like, look through and see, like, okay, does this have this hookup culture in it? Is it glorifying fornication?
And
is it making it normal? Is it normalizing it? Like, because sex should not be modeled outside of marriage.
Right.
And that's point blank period. Like, that's it. Sex was designed to be within a marriage covenant, and that's it. And anything outside of that is against God's design. And whenever you go outside of God's design, then there are consequences for that thing. And it's not that God doesn't forgive and he doesn't redeem you, but there are still consequences to that.
But it's also, I think, well, it is, the hookup culture has its grown. Like, do you remember, like, the Disney shows?
Yeah.
Right, the shows you would watch, and I could be wrong, but from what I remember, there was always a mom and a dad. Like, I know there was probably the oddball or two that didn't, or that was a single, but it wasn't a divorce. Mom had died or dad had died, something like that. But to where now it's like we've gone to this more, everyone is included kind of thing, to where I can understand one side, it'd be hard for you, being a girl growing up without a father, to see everything and never seeing anything that resembled your home. But at the same time, like, that's where that fine line is drawn, and where we had talked about.
But, like, I knew that, like, a family should consist of a mother and father.
Right. But it seems like how it is portrayed is so important to where it doesn't inflict a scar in you to where you're resentful towards those people, or envious of those people, rather. But instead of showing such acceptance to it, like, we can obviously say that, it's like the whole question of, if God is so great, why do bad things happen? Right? And it's because the world we live in is bad.
Yeah, because the consequences for going outside of God's design.
Exactly. And so with, the thing that really struck me the most is when I heard, basically, like, your eyes and your ears are the windows to your soul. And then thinking about the other day, the sermon was about your memory and how you see things in pictures and images. And I'd heard it. It's funny when you hear things and you've already heard it 40 different times, and then it clicks. And you start rehearing it all these times. And it's like, basically, your memory is like the little highlight reel. And it just goes, and depending on what you're thinking about, your brain is just pulling all these clips. And, from the age of, I don't know, 11, 12, 10, 11 or 12, somewhere in there, and starting to look and to venture into the porn and things like that, and that sexual, obviously, curiosity, but just things that I've seen.
Did your parents ever have a conversation with you, like, what sex is?
My dad had a very brief sex talk with me, and then we went and watched Scary Movie.
How old were you?
Like, whatever Scary Movie came out, whatever year that was. I don't know what year that was.
Okay.
But
so
middle school, maybe?
One of my friends had a really good point of...
That's a good question.
They talked to their kids about, like, they had that talk with them.
Like the sex talk?
Yeah, at the age of 10.
Okay.
And the reason why they do that is because hormones have not started yet. And
so is that why it's better to have it?
Yes.
But I thought that was conflicting.
So it depends on what kind of sex talk you're giving your kids. So if you're giving them like a secular one,
I guess, yeah.
But they talk about like God's design for it and how it's part of that marriage covenant and how it's beautiful in a marriage.
Right.
And she said that the reason why they say age 10 is because the hormones haven't started. So it's like it's natural curiosity when those hormones kick in to like, I think, to have questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have no foundation of what that is, then you're just going to go to that thing that shows it. And they say a lot of kids, like whenever they start to get curious, that they'll go online and they'll search up, like they'll Google sex. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine
what
pops up. Mm-hmm. And then it puts that perverse image in their mind, mm-hmm. and that seed's planted, mm-hmm. and then the enemy waters it.
And that's the thing, like, and it puts all these things, and it's even like today, like not today obviously, but any day, if we go to the gym, all right, mm-hmm. like I find myself to where, like, not that I'm just, and I don't, it's hard to say without making yourself sound like just a pervert, but like you have to look down.
Yeah.
And it's because of that. Like your memory, your mind just plays these clips, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously you see very, very minimal clothing. That's going to spark up a thought, mm-hmm. right? And then that thought will retrigger that memory, and then these clips start to playing, and it's like having this talk with other men who've struggled with this.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of times, whatever the scenario would be that usually led them to viewing or looking at this, like when they find themselves in that, like for me, just driving by myself, mm-hmm. right, and just along with your thoughts, it like just the thought will come up, and then as soon as that thought comes up again, it triggers that memory.
Yeah, you got to take that.
And
thing
it's
captive.
like there's a split second there to where you're back in that moment. Mm-hmm. And obviously when you were in that moment before, you were either okay with it or trying to be okay with it to justify it or something.
And I don't think it's you in that moment. I think whenever those thoughts come in, I think it's the enemy.
And I think he's the one controlling that.
And that's why it comes out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, are you going to take this thought captive?
And that's what I was getting
to. And cast down every imagination that exalts itself against God? Or are you going to feed this imagination that has been mm-hmm. planted in your mind by the devil?
And other people have had that same, as far as saying no, mm-hmm. like just, I'm not. To where now it's almost, and I've said this before as far as the different attacks from different angles, but been challenged in many different ways. But when you see the devil as just a nuisance, mm-hmm. like he's a gnat, like just buzzing around. And it seems like when you're living it and you're justifying it and you're making it, like he just gets bigger and bigger.
Well, because what you feed grows, right? Exactly. So like if you continue to feed mm-hmm. this perverse spirit, mm-hmm. it's going to grow. But if you continue to starve it,
mm-hmm. but it's also
then it's going to die.
To where if you don't have the healthy father role being fulfilled in your life mm-hmm. as a teenage boy, like just. Again, it was year 2000, July something, year 2000, when that movie came out. That was when, I don't know how he thought that was going to be a good idea, but his sex talk was basically, he did mention consent. Like, you have to have consent to wear protection. And that was basically
But that's basically
it.
Like, you can have sex with whoever, and whenever you want. It doesn't have to be within the context of marriage.
Like it never was a save yourself for marriage kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just, well, for one, that's not what he was doing. Like,
right.
I've seen him in multiple relationships. Him and my mom got divorced when I was mm-hmm. like 4, I think. So he's been in and out of it. But like it was more of I do see a difference in, and I'm not going to say any of it's innocent, but it's definitely more driven now. Mm-hmm. Like I can see it in my generation versus his. Like it was a whole different culture. Like you have a whole different view of things and perspective of things, and not saying any of it's right or wrong. Well, obviously a lot of it's wrong. Not saying either one is more right than the other, But it's like now it's just more back.
I think the side that lines up more with God's design is the right side.
Yeah, but I'm talking about from the worldly perspective, being his culture, my culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the boomers versus millennial, is that mine is more digitally driven, like movies, shows, like all the shows we grew up watching. It was always the boys chasing the girl or the girl chasing the boy. It was always about that. And it was all these romantic
I feel like everything
scenarios
was like overly
that
sexualized.
never happened. And it's like, in reality, you see like the whole club scene of anywhere, the hookups or whatever, and it's like they're both drenched in sweat. Like the smell would be dry. I'm like, that's impossible. Like, this is stupid. But yet you see that and you're like, oh, why don't I have that? I'm like, because it's not real.
Yeah.
And so and you chase that, but it's driven because of that, back to the identity crisis. Like, you don't know who you are, therefore anything's possible. And that's not true. I mean, obviously everything's possible through God and all that stuff. I'm talking about what we're talking about. Like, it's not. There's a guideline to this. And again, like with any of it, the sexual behavior, the risky behavior or whatever, or criminal behavior, I couldn't think of that word, or just social development. Like, you're not going to produce, because it takes two different sides. Like, a man has to know how to exist in a world with men and women, right? How to respect both of them, how to carry yourself in society that exists of both of them, or consists of both of them, without being raised by both of them. Because, I know plenty of times, my stepdad wasn't my father at all, but mostly being raised by my mother, like, just the perspective of things. Like, it was always this kind of scarcity, which both have the like, you always have to work. But it's like there's never going to be enough, so there's no point in setting a goal, right? So now, to where we have this business, prior to starting it, I thought it was going to be impossible, because that would just be it. The bar is set so low. But then, I know this is venturing into both of the
married
parents.
a dreamer.
Yeah. But, and I said it earlier, like, it's weird. Like, it feels like we're living out a fantasy, right? Like something that seemed unachievable.
Yeah.
And
a dream.
It's hard to believe you're here in the moment, right? And so it's like trying to just exist in the blessing versus that.
Yeah.
But, and trying to be the father and the husband and just the friend. Like, how to be friends with people. Because it's like, that's the other side of things socially is, your friends always had to be, it was a transitional or transactional thing, to where, it was a give and take barter system, more or less. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I think there was one more. What was?
No, that was it.
Oh,
so
that was it.
just,
that was
I'm going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We're going to tie this bow on here and send it off. So Psalm 68:5 reminds us that God is a father to the fatherless. And so my call to fathers is to be present, to be faithful, and to lead your children. Like you were saying earlier on, like, don't be passive. Like, take that assertive role in leading your family and leading your wife. And the more, I feel like, hesitant your wife is to let you lead, is probably the more you need to lead, because she's having to do it out of a place of your passivity.
Well, and
just
like you said,
speaking from,
you're robbing from you and from
and that's just me speaking from what I've seen in my life. And then to the church, so this is to you because you're part of the church. Well, I guess the other one was because you're also a father. To step in where fathers are absent.
Yeah.
And I've seen you do that. I know you probably don't have capacity to do it to the level that you would like to be able to do it. But if you're listening to this and you do have that capacity to step up, like, hey, like, there's a mom in my church that I know she's a single mom and she's raising these kids by herself. Like, step into that home and ask her, like, hey, like, when does your kid have games? Like, show up to their games. Because that really matters to these kids. And check in with those kids and ask them how they're doing. Like, ask them, you know, like, how's school going? And I see you do that as a youth leader.
Yeah.
And I know that you wish that you had more time to be able to go to all their games and participate in all these other areas of their life. But to the church, step up and be a father.
And I think, I mean, the biggest thing is just showing that you actually remember what they have going on is important.
And let me just also say this too, like, if you're going to be wish-washy on it, just don't.
Yeah.
Because they don't need any more of that either.
Instability,
yeah. And then to our youth, and really not just to our youth, but to every person that has struggled with this, find your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Because that is the only place that you can truly experience freedom in who you are, who you were called to be. Because the world is never going to be able to fill you. And only the love of God can fill you. Yeah. Even if you have the best parents in the world, if you don't know who you are in Christ, then you don't know who you are.
And you had wrote for the fathers, for moi. But it was be present, be faithful, but lead your children. And I just thought about that. Like, I know I mentioned son, but for your daughter. Yeah. Right? And it's like trying to be the example.
Are you the husband you would want her to marry?
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get. That's what the goal anyway. Yeah. But like, even the subtle things as getting you water, right? Going to get your water, opening the door, and it's funny because our daughter expects the same thing. Yeah, like, Daddy, when you go down there to get, will you fill my water bottle? And it's
she'll even be like, Mommy, do you need water? So that Daddy can go get me water too.
We'll go get us water. And it's funny too, because it's just like, she'll pick her water bottle up and it's like, you didn't put ice in it. And it's like, well, that's because I want her to have that expectation. Yeah. That you were to serve. And I was looking up.
Because a husband is called to serve his wife.
And that's what I was looking up a while ago.
And it's not that I can't get my own water. I mean, I don't want to get my own water.
But I mean, it's when you can.
You're called to serve me.
So I was looking at, and I was unable to really put together the part of it. But anyway, but it was about Proverbs 31, right? And you see it on T-shirts, blah, blah, the Proverbs 31 wife. But
the Proverbs 31 husband.
Yes, like there is a call to do that too, to appreciate her goodness, live honorably alongside of her, praise her openly, value her, I think, godliness over charm and beauty, because it says beauty is fading. And another part of it is charm is deceptive, but beauty is fading. And beauty is fading. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. But it also, and this that was just a quick trying to scramble to get some of the stuff together, but it is that the husband is noted to bring honor to her, which to bring honor to the home. And so it's two parts to this. Yep. And I think that could be a whole other thing, is how people have used the Bible to separate men and women when it's not. It's obviously a joint effort. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add in there. Right. It was my 2 cents. My Proverbs 31 wife.
Yes, my Proverbs 31 husband.
I'm working on it.
Y'all should get some more merch, because there's far more Proverbs 31 woman merch than there is for men.
Yeah.
There's an untapped market for you.
Honored at the city gates.
All right. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We will be back to discuss hopefully the remainder of those 7 key factors. We were going to keep this to 30 minutes.
That didn't happen.
If you made it all the way through, you are realizing that it did not happen. So anyways, we're trying to yap less and make this more concise and shorter for y'all, but thank you for sticking with us and share this video with somebody that could use some encouragement.
Thank you.
You gotta hit
No,
stop.
I can't. I don't know how to stop.